te tava ke oma Tona kita te a te whakana noa Whaka anu ai toke lau ke tong Te pota tala i loto nuku alofa Turi turi mai nuka ke tau O ewa ihe tala baha akolo Tuku siki toke whaka whanongo Fui fui aku Papa imo heo fo Te kibuna Sike te tawa ke oma Kauna kita Bea te whakana noa Whaka anu Ai toke lau ke tong Ke pota kala I lotonu ku alofa Ave nui Ohala tu pola Venu kesi Ile bunga moyahi Bongia Ie fasi moya Hengi hengi pea Me matala masani Te ibuna Sike te tawa ke oma Kona kita Te a te whakana noa Whaka amu Ai toke lau ke tonga Ke potan tala I lotonu ku alofa Ibuna, sike te tawa ke oma Kauna kita, te a te whakana noa Whaka amu, ai toke lau ke tong Ke pota kala, I lotonu ku alofa Turi turi, mai mua ke tau O ewa ihe baha akolo Tuku siki Oke whaka whanongo Fui fui oku Papa imo heo fo Te kibuna Sike te tawa ke oma Kona kita Pea te whakana noa Whaka amu Ai toke lau ke tong Ke pota tala I lotonu ku alofa Ave nui Ohala tu poula Venu kesi Ie bunga moea I Bongia Ie pasi moea Hengi hengi pea Me matala Ibuna, si ene tawa ke oma Kona kita, te a te whakana noa Whaka anu, ai toke lau ke tong Te pota tala, I lotonu ku alofa
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another session of the Kava podcast, Wednesday Hot Topics, live out of San Francisco. I hope you guys enjoyed that timer video. I'm sure some of you guys probably got some good old memories, the good old oldie Tongan songs. So thank you so much. We have a great show planned for you guys. And Tongan Mommy, Underground Roads, click on that link. Get here ASAP. But nevertheless, thank you so much. We have a great show planned for you guys. We're going to definitely have a good topic to discuss. and it's gonna be interesting. We do have some people that are gonna jump on pretty soon. It's me and Rose. As always appreciate you guys being part of the podcast. And I'll see you guys soon. And let's get it.
What are we arguing about?
A man is gonna do what a man wants to do.
VVS all on your wrist. Make you my wife, you no longer my bitch.
Let's get it. My name is Will. I'm the host of this show, the number one Polynesian podcast in the world.
Drippin' in Versace. All these other hoes trying to copy.
Women tend to bounce around in relationships. They can't stick and stay in a long-term relationship.
Again, don't agree with this.
So let's say, are you still in it? Are you still in it?
No. So you're basically saying I'm a whore.
This content is not suitable for the children under the age of 18 without adult supervision. Please be advised.
So I just wanted to take the time and make this video to apologize to absolutely nobody. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to another session of the Kava Club Podcast, Wednesday Hot Topics. You guys already know my name is Will. I am the host of this show. I'm your top doko. As always, thank you so much. Live out of San Francisco. As always appreciate you guys being part of the podcast and joining in on our Wednesday Hot Topics. As always, thank you so much for everybody out there. Thank you for watching, all my subscribers out there. If you love the content and see value in the content that I create for you guys with the panel of guests I always bring in to show support, don't forget to like and subscribe, okay? Don't forget this is a public show. If you're here for the first time, thank you so much for watching. But it is a public show, so if you're watching this right now, you want to jump on and be a public guest and add on to the conversations and be part of the panel. The link, I changed it up for tonight's episode, is on the description of the video. So just go to the description on the video. The link is posted on there. You'll be able to click on it and you'll be able to jump on and be part of the podcast. Of course, if you have something to say, you want to be heard, you want something to say so I can read it and so I can read it for everybody that's watching, for the whole audience to hear what you have to say, ask it through a super chat. Type it through a super chat. That's the best way to say it and donate to my channel. Always appreciate you guys that support me financially on my podcast. And of course, that's pretty much all my YouTube stuff. Thank you so much as always. And of course, to all the Kava drinkers out there, I'm going to try to do it the traditional way. Shout out to Balafessa for holding me accountable when it comes to my Kava etiquette. But to offer some words of endearment, something I will always be thinking about it before. I just want to say, everybody out there, just try to do something that your future self would thank you for. I've been thinking about that lately. Whenever you try to strive for something, I know sometimes it gets hard towards your path to achieve your goals and dreams, but that's something I constantly remind myself that when things get hard, I know my future self is going to thank me if I persevere and overcome. So shout out to everybody out there. To all you guys out there, all the Kava drinkers out there, supporters out there, thank you so much. But we have a great topic. We have a great show planned for you guys. And of course, I have a great guest that's joining me tonight. And of course, if you guys are going to jump on a little bit later, jump on and click on that link on the description of the video. Rose, thank you so much for being part of the pod. If you want to go ahead and give yourself a quick introduction for everybody out there. I know people are familiar. You've been part of my podcast a lot of times, but for people that may not know who Hungry Samoans is, go ahead, Rose, and give yourself a quick intro.
My name's Rose Santoborgansky, and I'm based out of Las Vegas. And you can find me on Instagram at Hungry Samoans. So let's get it.
Let's get it. All right. Yeah, so the topic we're going to discuss tonight, it's an interesting topic, and I know Rose just found out there's something called poly Twitter on Twitter. But if you guys are on Twitter, or it's called X now, but there was a big debate on poly Twitter or poly X between the Tongans out there and the Samoans, or just Polynesians in general, about colonization and talking about how every single island was colonized except Tonga. So it was an interesting debate. You know, people were having different conversations, sharing their opinions and their perspectives about colonization. So I know colonization, something that's often talked about within the Pacific Islander community. So I thought to myself, you know, let's bring up this topic on this Wednesday Hot Topic and let's talk about it. So yeah, and of course, everybody on the live chat, I see you guys are participating. Shout out to you guys on the live chat. Keep the live chat popping. You know, let me know what do you guys think about the topic. Do you think every single Pacific Islander has been colonized except Tonga? I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think? But there's a lot of Tongans out there. There's a lot of Tongans out there. They have, I guess that's one of the things, Rose, that we carry with pride as Tongans, that every single Pacific island has been colonized by the white man, except Tonga. We're the only one. And a lot of Tongans hold that with high regard and pride because, you know, we're warriors and we didn't let any other foreign entity, country, come in and take over. So all the other islanders succumbed to the foreign powers of the white man and imperialism of Western civilization. But Tonga was that's what I hear from the oh, go ahead.
Your microphone was off for a bit. Or a little
okay. Thank you. Yeah, give me a mic check. Everybody in the live chat, let me know if my how's my mic doing. If you guys can hear my audio, the quality of my audio. Just want to make sure that's working. Let me know in the live chat. But yeah, let me pass it to you, Rose. I know you're Samoan. So what are your thoughts about the topic we're discussing right now? You know, has every single Pacific Islander been colonized, even including Tonga? Go ahead, Rose.
So your question is, I guess that it's a bit vague because are you talking about here in America or are you talking about in the islands? So Tongans that live here or Tongan or the island itself?
The countries, the Tongan islands or the Pacific island countries.
Okay, so I don't know much about Tonga. I just know that I know Tongans here in America. I feel like every Polynesian that lives here has been colonized. As far as Samoa goes, you know, it's split into two. You have American Samoa and Samoa. And even though Samoa is still independent, it still is colonized because before colonization, we didn't believe in the British God. We didn't believe in Christianity. Since colonization, all Samoans have basically become Christians, and the whole island is a Christian island, both islands. So that's the main thing that I feel as a Samoan that has, like Christianity has colonized us more than anything because we still have our language intact, and we still love our foods that, you know, every Samoan loves Samoan food, even though it's hard to get it here in America. We still have like our traditions as far as the dances, the Fa Samoa, the way we sing, the way we practice a lot of different cultural things. So those things are still intact. The biggest thing though is that we don't have our original belief system, which was animism. We believed in nature, that all things had spirits. Basically everything was a god, the rocks, the water, the animals, the trees. We worshipped Mother Earth, Mother Nature. And since being colonized, we now worship one God. And that's changed a lot of our culture. So I'll give you an example. I grew up Mormon, and there's a lot of, in Utah, there's a lot of Mormons in Utah. There's a lot of Mormons, but there's a lot of Polynesians that are Mormon in Utah specifically. Well, I would say both Tongans and Samoans. There's a lot of each that are Mormon. So Mormons, they don't believe in getting tattoos, right? But tattoos, that's part of our culture. So that's something that, even though it's against the religion, there's still a lot of Samoans and Tongans, Polynesians that will still get tattoos because it's part of our culture. So stuff like that, it's like they can't really take away from us. because it's just so embedded into our culture. Another thing that's really huge is, even though we love our Samoan food, our Tongan food, we still have an American diet. And that's a really big thing that has basically taken over our people, is American diet, which is killing our people. So that's another thing that's really huge, is that we've been stripped of our indigenous diet and adapted to this American diet, which is why we have so many health issues as a people. Yeah.
All right, thank you for sharing that, Rose. As always, see you guys. You guys are going off on the live chat. It's interesting to hear what you guys are saying. But keep that live chat popping. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you think your country has not been colonized. Can you guys list on the comments? Let me know in the live chat the islands that you don't think hasn't been colonized, if it does exist. But I would like to hear from you guys. But I want to pass it back to you guys, Rose. What do you think about the Tongans thinking that they're not colonized like all the other islands? Because there are some Tongans out there that do believe that Tonga is the only country that has not been colonized. We have to have our own monarchy. But I think that really comes down to, I guess, what the definition of colonization is. For some people,
I couldn't hear the last part. You keep getting cut off for some reason.
I'm sorry. Is it better now?
Yeah, it's just sometimes it goes low and I can't hear you.
Okay. I'm probably gonna have to change the mic when you're responding. Okay, but there are some Tongans out there that do believe that Tonga is the only Pacific nation that has not been colonized. Every single other island has been colonized, and we still have our monarchy, our rules, our own country. So, what do you think about that? What do you think? Because for some people they say that if you have Christianity and you're worshiping a white man religion, that's colonization. For some people, say if the white people are coming to your country, or if you have laws that are similar to Western society, or if you have banks, if you have foreign banks in your country, or maybe there's other countries, like I know China has a lot of financial power in the islands, as far as controlling the majority of our economy in Tonga. So if a foreign country has that certain influence in your economy, yeah, you have been colonized, which is true in Tonga. But for some reason, there's a lot of Tongans out there that disregard that and just believe that they haven't been colonized. But what's your thought? What is your thoughts on that? The Tongans that do believe they have not been
first
colonized.
of all, I don't think Papua New Guinea is colonized. That may be something to look into. They're still pretty indigenous. I don't think they let anyone onto the island. There's certain islands, like really tiny islands, that don't allow any outsiders. In fact, and I don't know which island, don't quote me, but you can Google it. There's certain islands where if you try to get onto the island, they'll kill you. I don't know. I think it's probably. But as far as Tonga goes, I've never been to Tonga, so I don't know. What you're saying sounds right. Like if you've adapted to anything from the West or from East, from China, I feel like you have been colonized if you're using their money system, banking systems, taking in outside food, so importing. What else? Oh, if you believe in the European God, that's definitely colonization. But if Tongans believe that they haven't been, maybe they just been the least colonized, I would say. I wouldn't say not at all, but the least, in my opinion. Growing up around Tongans and Samoans, I've always noticed that Tongan culture was a lot stronger. For some reason, it was a lot more tight-knit. And I always wondered why. And now I understand. It's because they've been the least colonized, in my experience, having grown up with both. And I grew up around Samoans as far as going to a Samoan church and family members, but like my friends were Tongan. I was hanging out with Tongan guys and had Tongan girlfriends, so I got to see a lot of their culture from that aspect. And I was considering myself closer to Tongans than to my own people. So yeah, that's just what I see.
So do you think that, in your opinion, you believe that Tonga is a colonized nation?
Yeah, I believe just from hearsay, not having been there. If I was there, I could say a lot more. But if they do have banking and they do take in imports and they do believe in a Christian God, then yeah, they've been colonized. So if that's the case, then yes. But I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah. Also, I think.
I don't think. I mean, I don't think they. I mean, what is? Have you been? You grew up in Tonga, so like, do they have banking and do they have a Christian God and do they, import goods from other countries? Are there other people that live there besides Tongans?
Yeah, I think the three biggest churches in Tonga right now, I believe, is the Mormons. The Mormons, right? The Mormon Church has a big influence in Tonga. The Wesleyan Church, I believe, in the Tonga, right?
I know there's a lot of like Methodists too, because I know a lot of Tongans in Utah are Methodists.
Methodist, Catholic. I know there's a Catholica. I know because I used to walk by it every single day when I walked to school. It's right by the cemetery, the Royal Cemetery. But yeah, so I know on the comments they're saying that Tonga is not colonized because they were worshiping a Jewish God, not a European God. So that's the difference between. I saw it on the comments. But the thing is, the Mormons, that's not a European God. That's a God that was created originated from Utah. So, but but the Mormons have a big influence in the Tongan church. So, yeah, I think I believe that Tonga is colonized because religion, also the what do you call it? The economy. I don't know what it is like in Samoa, but the Chinese have literally owned majority of the stores in the Indians and the Chinese, but I think it's mostly the Chinese. They own majority of the falikoloas or the stores that in Tonga. So they have a lot of economical control of the property of the stores in Tonga. Is that how it's like in Samoa?
I've never been, but from what my mom has told me, that there are a good number, but it's you can't own land in Samoa unless you're Samoan. That's probably one of the biggest reasons why we're still independent is because we don't sell our land. It's just passed down 2 generations, which is a good thing. Why a lot of countries have that same policy because they don't want, outsiders coming in and buying up all the land and then kicking out all the natives like they do in Hawaii. Basically, some does not want to become Hawaii. Because that's what happened. All the indigenous people, natives, they lost their land. It's pristine land, and people that buy it up are usually your Japanese. It's mostly Japanese.
It's the same thing in Tonga. It's you can only own land if you're Tonga. I think it's called Tuamo Tonga Kahoktafiya. It just means that the land is going to be for the Tongan people. But the Chinese have found a way around it. You know what the Chinese do? I don't know if they do this.
Oh, you know what? I think it's because they're marrying, right?
Yeah, they're marrying and having kids with the Tongans, and then the kids can. And once they marry and have kids, and their kids can own. So, the Chinese, they'll figure out a way.
Well, what do you think about that? You think that's a bad thing, or you think that's a good thing? Because I think it's a great thing. Chinese are really smart and they're very business oriented, so it's good for them to mix and put that, put that in the gene pool, entrepreneurship. Because in Samoa, people are lazy. People don't want to work the land. Even the government gives land to people to work plantation, and they can sell their crops to the government who exports it out. They're too lazy to work their land because they can get more money just by asking relatives in the U.S. for money. Why work when you can get it for free by begging your relatives in the mainland? Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, I have a question for you. Do you think that colonization? I mean, I think this may be a unpopular opinion, because I know there's a lot of Pacific Islanders, especially people who are very rooted in the culture, that they're against colonization, or they have a they hate the idea that we were colonized by the West by the West. But for me, in my opinion, I think it was necessary. I think colonization was a good thing. Because it allowed us to adapt to the modern world and introduce technologies that from the modern world, and adapted us to modern society, what's going on in the West. Because if you imagine if the islands were never colonized, and nobody never came to the islands and introduced any kind of Western inventions or ideas, or knowledge that we know now in modern times. I think it's for me, in my opinion, I don't think it's good or bad, but I think it's just the way of life. The society that does the best, does the well, is going to expand, and they're going to expand to other cities and other countries. And I think it's always been like that since the beginning of time. The most powerful country with the most advanced technology, they're always going to dominate. They're always going to rule. So they're going to conquer other nations. But the conquering part, that's different. I understand that's hard, but the benefit of another country that's more advanced than you coming over and taking over your land, that you get to adopt a lot of their knowledge and their systems that makes them really powerful. So, like the Chinese, you made an example. A lot of people in Tonga may not like the Chinese, but at the end of the day, the Chinese are coming. They're smart. They're very advanced. They're good at business. They're good at building businesses. So we can learn from that as Tongans as we adapt to the modern world. And obviously, if you're marrying a Chinese, you get to learn from them firsthand, right? We can't if we were just left to our own devices, I don't think that. I think we still have a lot of issues within the islands and if we didn't know the modern solution we know now for the Western society, I think we'll be struggling in society. So what do you think about that, like colonization? Do you think it's because a lot of people, especially there's a lot of people out there that think, oh, I wish we were never colonized. And I'm in America right now enjoying, the modern infrastructure of running water, electricity, hot water, computer, internet. I'm like, I'm kind of glad that some ships landed into our shore, right? We are more advanced today because of the West. But yeah, I think it's kind of illogical. I'm not rational thinking. For those who are hardcore, it's like, we should not be colonized. We should be just left. But those are the same people who live in America and enjoying, Western civilization. But at the same time, they complain about the very country or the society they live in, even though they benefit from it. What do you think about that, Rose?
Well, it's a loaded question. So I'll just start with some examples. So there's tribes in Africa, indigenous tribes that have never been colonized. They still hunt the same way they've always hunted, dress. They have their own dialects. Their lands are untouched. They're basically left to themselves, and they're thriving. They're very healthy. They're thriving. I know some people that actually went and lived among them, and I can't remember the name. I think it's Malawi people. Don't quote me on it. But they've been untouched, and they're thriving, and they're great. They're extremely healthy. They have perfect teeth. no health issues. Their diets are very simple, and they're peaceful tribes. So that's kind of an example of what everyone else would kind of look like if they were untouched by, Europeans, pretty much. Like Samoa, it was a peaceful place. Yeah, there was probably like wars amongst themselves, little wars, certain tribes against each other. But for the most part, at least in like my grandparents' days, they were thriving. They were happy. The land was thriving. There was abundance everywhere. No one was starving. They populated. They flourished. There was not really any sicknesses that were brought on to them, because a lot of sicknesses were brought from Europeans. So I feel like if we had left the islands alone, or just a lot of people, well, I mean the islands because they're so small. If they left the islands alone, people would be fine. But the fact that they're now, people have adapted now to these modern times. It's like, well, you can't. It's almost like you're forced to accept the outside coming in, and you have to adapt in order to survive in a way. Not necessarily though, because still in Samoa you can still live off the land and be fine. But even with that, there's still a lot of poverty, because there's still a lot of places where there's no access to water. So if you have no water, then it's really hard to flourish. You're going to get a lot of sicknesses. You need water to survive. Water is life. But prior to colonization, they never had those issues with water, because people lived along the coast in places where there was easy access to water. Now they're more inland, so it's harder to get water. So that's a big issue, is clean water in Samoa. Still to this day, even with our modern technologies, you still need money. And a lot of them, they don't have access to go to school, a lot of the kids, because it's too far and they have to pay for the bus. They can't afford the bus fare. So it's like little stuff like that in a small island, it matters, because if the kids can't get educated, then they're stuck. And if they don't have enough kids to work the plantation, then like who's going to work it as the parents get older? It becomes really hard unless you have like bigger families. But what's happening is like all the people who are able-bodied are leaving to America. So, and then this is like common in a lot of countries. My sister lived in Moldova, and in Moldova, it's the smallest country in Eastern Europe. It's a very, very poor country. And she lived with the host family because she was sorry, my dogs. So she says that in her village, there's a lot of little kids and there's a lot of elderly. But all of the able-bodied young people, they had to leave the country. Hold on. Stop. Go outside. Go.
Those dogs were getting colonized. But underground roads.
Sorry, my dog.
Hey,
Thank you for coming on as a guest.
you got it.
So a lot of the able-bodied people, all the young people, they can't stay home and work the lands. They have to go to other countries to make money to send back home. And so you have young kids that are being raised by their grandparents. And that's literally what's happening in a lot of places, a lot of these countries. It's like people can't make money in their own village. They have to leave the village, go somewhere else to make money because of all these modern advances that have taken over that require them to have money. So it's very difficult. It's very difficult for a lot of people in other countries. But yeah, there's definitely benefits to modern technology. But I feel like a lot of these benefits are being used against us. I mean, just look around. We have so much technological advances, but yet people are sicker than they've ever been, ever. This is like the worst times where people are the sickest. They're the most obese. healthcare is at its highest. It's like, okay, so has this modern technology helped us, or has it just put us in more debt and made us more sick? So it's just things like that. Look at our food. Our food's worse. You have so many pesticides and chemicals, and everything's processed. Nothing comes straight from the land that's organic, because there's so many people. They have to make so much. You're gonna put hormones in all the animals to make them fatter, to feed more people. So it's basically the Industrial Revolution. It really fucked people. Even though it created a lot of jobs, it still fucked a lot of people, because before that, people were still growing their own food, making fresh bread, and living pretty good lives. And then that kicked in, and then basically everyone had to move to the workforce and work all these work like machines. So yeah, it's I don't think we've advanced as a society at all. I mean, look right now, we're on the brink of war. Literally, World War III. We're on the brink of World War III. And it's not going to get any better. It's actually going to get a lot worse. So colonization just fucks everybody. Even though it looks like it could be beneficial, it's not, because the people that rule everything, these big corporations, have they're not for the betterment of humanity. They're just all about profit and greed. And it's just really sad times right now, because everyone's suffering at the hands of a few, which is insane, because we're dependent on them for our survival. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Rose. And as always, everybody in the live chat, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And don't forget, if you want to jump on as a public guest, as you can see, Underground Rose just joined in as a public guest. The link is in the description of the video. And of course, if you have something to say, I see you guys have a lot of opinions. So if you have something to say that you want me to read out loud for everybody to hear, ask it through a super chat and support the channel. But let me pass it to you, Underground Roads. Thank you for jumping on as a guest. And what are your thoughts? Tonight has Pacific Islanders, has every Pacific Islander been colonized, including Tonga? Go ahead, Underground Roads.
My thoughts are, I'm going to ask a question based on your question.
Mm-hmm.
If we are not happy with what the colonizers, or what we think the colonizers have done, right? Are we able to then, when you think of it, would we survive the system that existed then?
Have we survived the system?
Would we manage to survive the system they had then before the colonizers?
I think we would. I think we would have survived.
Are we going to be satisfied with our cultural Samoa and the Tongan systems that are in place? That traditionally will we be able to handle that?
I don't think we would have any comparison unless someone from the outside came in and showed us. So it's like, if you're in your own world, you're not going to know any other world unless someone from the outside comes in and says, hey, stop doing that. Do it like this. Don't believe that. Believe in this. Don't speak that way. Speak like this. So it's like, it strips you of your identity as a person. And that's just never a good thing, period.
But at the same time, when you think about it, it's kind of like biting the hand that fed you. If you either choose one or the other, I mean, it's almost as if we're blaming colonization for stripping us of our identity. But at the same time, a lot of us are pretty lucky that we still hold on to our identity. We know who we are. We know what our roots are, compared to a lot of countries and people who don't even know who their forefathers are and the cultural protocols. So is this an issue for those who live in Western society? Or is this an issue for those who live in the islands?
I think both. I think there are people in America that have issue with it, but I find that hypocritical, because how are you going to complain about
Agree.
racial in the West when you live in the West and you've been from the West. So I think
Right.
that's hypocritical. Then I do agree also there's other people in Tonga or other islands, maybe because of generational trauma, what their forefathers or grandmas have passed on to them, what they experienced before. And I've met people like that, and they do complain. But in my opinion, I think I know colonization, but I think it's just a part of the real world. That when a civilization becomes very advanced, they're going to expand to other parts of the world. Wait, wasn't Tonga weren't we cannibalistic before the colonizers came? Weren't we cannibalistic?
Well, Tonga was barbaric at one stage.
Right.
Before that, you had chiefly men brothers taking out each other.
Yeah.
It was barbaric. I remember my grandmother used to say it was so barbaric that you would see the bodies piled up on the land and you could smell the stench of the flesh. So that's what I'm saying. Are we happy to live in that era? Or are we grateful that we have some form of, I think in a way, some freedom in a sense that we're able to speak and voice our opinion? I think under the old way, we would be subjected to the cultural system, which is very, very different to a lot of us who are used to what the colonizers had brought for us.
Yeah. And also, because both of you guys are women, right? I think in the cultural, I don't know, maybe you can somebody can educate me, but today in the West, women, you guys can pursue careers, you guys can go to college, you guys can go to education. I think wasn't the traditional back in the day with the cultural wasn't more like just housework. Like the women stayed in the house, and the men went out there to work and the provider protectors. So if the people out there that are fighting anti-colonization, especially the women, then if you go back to the traditional times, then you wouldn't be enjoying the rights and privileges that you have here in the West, where you can be independent and do whatever you want in life. You'd be more restricted in traditional times. So I find it very
really hard to hear. It's like your mic is not. It's just hard to hear you.
Yeah, let me. I'm gonna switch mics. But I'll pass it back to you guys. What do you guys want to add on to that? Do we really want to go back to the old times? Without colonization, is that the world that we really want to live in and thrive in? Come on now, that doesn't make sense to me.
I think that there's some wonderful things about all cultures that we are very lucky to still have information and knowledge of. We're still lucky to even have those traditions and stuff passed on compared to a lot of cultures who have lost those things that have rooted a lot of us as Polynesians. I think we're very, very blessed to have some form of depth instead of constantly bending with the trend, but to also, again, to survive in Western society, we had no choice but to get involved economically with Western world to be a part of what was created through the industrial system, like the cogs, right? The economic cogs and thing of Western culture. I think we wouldn't survive if we were disconnected in that sense. But again, the freedom came with a little, I don't know what people mean by freedom, but there was some freedom that came when Christianity came to the islands to some sense. Because then we as women would probably not be heard and seen. and there wouldn't be anything such thing as masculine and feminine toxicity.
Yeah, what do you think about the? Yeah, that's. What do you think about that, Rose? I mean, because you brought it up. Better. You think it's better to go back because I think you brought it up that point. Maybe we were left. If we were left alone, maybe it would be a lot better. Do you really believe that?
I believe that because I mean, like, if you look at India, there's a lot of villages in India that are prospering and they haven't been colonized. They still farm the way they've always farmed. I was just studying this one village. I don't remember the name, but they used to have really dry lands, and then they figured out how to farm it in a way where they know how to direct the water so that all the lands get water, and they have so much abundance of produce that they are living off, and the women are happy because they're farming better than the men, and the men, you know, they're learning from the women, and it's just funny how they're just so happy and they're flourishing, and they're not living with any advanced technologies. It's all just ancient technologies that they use, and they're thriving. There's little villages in India and villages in Africa, and still a lot of places in South America. You'll find in Australia, there's still a lot of Aboriginals that are very, very much, not haven't been touched by colonization. So there's still a lot of remote parts of the world that haven't been touched. Basically, the places that have been colonized are the places where the colonizers were looking for resources. And what they usually do is they go in and then they deplete those lands of its resources, where the people are stripped of their food sources and their water sources. And so that's what makes them a poor country, because these countries were not poor before colonization. They were thriving. And ever since they've been colonized, they've just been destroyed and become third world countries. You see it all over South America. And it's just, it's all because of the resources that certain nations want, specifically America. We love to go and find resources and strip the lands of its resources, and just don't give a shit about the people. Make deals with people and say, oh yeah, we're going to give you this, and this. And these countries believe America, and then they get fucked. And what can they do? America's so powerful. They're basically just left helpless. I mean, prime example is Hawaii, of all places, who was an actual state, but still it's stripped of all not all, but a lot of its resources. The people, Hawaiians, they're the poorest people there. And it's like owned by a lot of Japanese companies. I mean, most of the tourists that go to Hawaii are all your wealthy Japanese people. A lot of Americans too, and Europeans, but mostly wealthy Japanese people that go there, buy the lands, and use Hawaii as they have their own damn island. Why do they need another island? Because it's not tropical island, you know? They want tropical. Yeah. So, I mean, it's really sad, really, really sad when you really see what goes on in these places that have been just so, they've been thriving. People were happy. All these little villages were doing great before they were all of a sudden, taken over by a higher power.
Do you really think thriving?
What was that?
Is my mic working better now?
Yeah.
No, what I'm saying is, do you really believe they were thriving?
Well, it's happening now already. So that's why it's like, well, when I listen to my mom talk about her childhood, she lived in her village. They were thriving. They were a thriving village. My grandfather was the Matai, and all the stories she tells me were all good, happy stories. There was nothing that was bad that happened there. And then she came, to America, and that's when a lot of shit started happening. But all the stories from her childhood were always good stories. They always had food. Because they had food. They had their plantations. They fished. I'm like, man, I want to grow up in that time. I want to go back there when my grandfather was around and see what that was like. But, we can't compare it to now because we're so used to our modern, lifestyle. It's very different. Very different times.
say that those, when you look back at the older times, right, how those people were living, it's easy to say that they thrived in it and they preferred it because they had nothing else to compare it to. Like if they knew there was a different world or there's a Western world, for me it'd be interesting to hear from them, like, hey, would you if you knew about this world that existed, which was the West, and you know what type of world it is, would they? I wonder.
Well, you don't have to wonder because the prime example is Amish people. They have their own community and they allow their children, when they grow up to an adult, to go out and explore the world. Most of them end up going back to their community because they see what the world is like and they don't like it. So they go back to their Amish community and they thrive there. Amish communities thrive. And they don't have any of these technological advances that we have. So that's a prime example right there.
Yeah. But it'd be interesting because even say the islands, right? Even right now in Tonga, it's 100,000 people live in Tonga right now. I think last time I checked. I think over time, eventually, they're gonna get overcrowded. I don't know.
That's another thing. People believe, we have overpopulation. We have so much land that we need more people. We don't have enough people. Japan has an issue with not having enough people because what you have is a lot of independent women who don't want to have kids. So they're not, and their population isn't growing. When you have economy tied to your population, your economy cannot grow unless your population grows. It's just how it goes. So that's a really big issue in Japan. Even Elon Musk was pointing that out. He always points out that we need more people. If everyone, global warming, climate bullshit, it's all a farce to depopulate places because everyone thinks that we don't have enough. We have so much. We have so much land. We just need to figure out how to manage it. But I mean, it's owned by government, so there you go, right there. Government doesn't know how to manage shit.
Yeah.
Can I chime in on Hawaii?
Yeah.
So as far as Hawaii is an incremental piece in the Pacific to connecting the economic cogs towards the Asia Pacific. That's why Hawaii was, I really, 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 really hurt for Hawaii because that was the point and center of connecting the Asia and the US and the Western world. And they were an incremental part in the economic system. Yeah. And seriously, I wish we had done more for Hawaii. But it's unfortunate. And as far as you mentioned earlier about the land, a lot of us in the Pacific, we lived a very sustainable lifestyle. We knew what to farm, what to cultivate in season, and how to tend to the land in a sense that, which is one of the things that I'll credit to a lot of us in the Pacific, is that we've been able to honor our duty to the land and not have it be completely taken over by Western culture to destroy. Does that make sense? To take advantage of what we have, the minerals and resources that we have on the land. And I think we should be very grateful for that. I mean, there's so much of untouched land in the Pacific that is yet to explore and resource explore. But then again, it's one of the, I find we're very lucky in that sense that we're kind of protected and isolated to some extent, that, if all hell breaks out in the US, we know where we can go. You know what I'm saying? Because, yeah.
So So underground roads. So do you believe that Tonga is a colonized nation or not colonized nation?
I don't think Tonga is a colonized nation. Tonga ceded the country to God because they don't believe in ceding a country to man. And I have a lot of admiration because it's the only country in the world that ceded their nation to God compared to all the other countries. And if you look all the other countries that ceded their countries to man, you could see all the suffering that's gone through there. I mean, Tonga has its issues. A lot of third world countries have their issues, trying to deal with the Western influence and Western culture and also maintaining some economic status. But that's all part of the process. But the best thing that I really value about a lot of us in the Pacific is we still have those our roots in the ground. We don't flow with the trend easily. We don't bend, we don't adjust with the trends. We know it's there, but we're still rooted.
Yeah. And also I have a question for you guys, because a lot of people, like I told you guys before, I think colonization, like powerful countries or societies expanding and expanding their territory, I think that's just the way of life. It's reality. That's how it's always existed since the beginning of time because of resources. Societies always conquered other nations for the sake of resources so they can sustain their people. So I know a lot of people talk about that they're against colonization, but didn't we colonize? Didn't Pacific Islands colonize each other?
Yeah, pretty much.
We can see him criticize a white man. Oh, they came over and they colonized us, but didn't we do the same thing? Because I know Tonga we colonized. There's some parts of Fiji that have a Tonga culture. I remember I was talking to a Fijian that the village he came from, it's most of their traditions is Tongan rooted, because when Tonga went over to Fiji, but didn't we do the same thing to each other? So that's why I find a disconnect. Like white people, but then when it comes to us colonizing each other, oh, that's not colonization. That's us just, sharing with our brothers and sisters our love for each other, like going to war with each other. So what
it was back and forth between Samoa and Tonga, back and forth between Fiji. And in fact, Lao was ma'afu. Onoi Lao, all of Lao as the Tongan influence. That's all my ancestors do. Because some of us had come over from Tonga and had accompanied the princess at that time and brought her over to Lao. So that's the ties between that. And then the ties between Samoa also, which is a beautiful thing. I think it's, even though over history we've had our battles, I just love the fact that we're all interconnected and we have so much more in common than differences.
Yeah.
The heart of the world is in Polynesia. Seriously.
Rose, do you want to add on?
Yeah, I just feel like, everyone does colonize each other. You're always going to have your superior people colonize. I mean, the only reason the reason why the West was able to colonize was because of one thing and one thing only: guns. They had them before everyone else did.
Yeah.
Simple. So with that one thing, the weapons, they're able to rule.
No, I think Chinese had it before because the Chinese invented black powder, gunpowder.
Well, I don't know where it originated from, but the point was that whoever has guns has power. Yeah. In this day and age, right now, whoever has the biggest military, the strongest military has power. Whoever's nuclear weapons has power. So, I mean, ultimately what it comes down to is whoever has the biggest, baddest weapons rules.
Don't you think it was a good thing that we were well, I know some people may not think Tonga is colonized, but I think Tonga is colonized. But don't you think that it's a good thing that we were colonized? So that way we, if we were just left to our own devices, obviously you're gonna be, we're not gonna be ready. We're not gonna be ready as far as a nation to protect ourselves from the bigger nations. So if somebody say Tonga was not colonized at all, and nobody knew about Tonga until somebody discovered it in 2023. I think whoever discovered us, I think they would just take over us. But I think it's a good thing that we build relationships with the West and found a way to maintain our own independence within our own nation and build relationships where they can just leave us alone and rule ourselves. But if we were just left our own devices and then somebody happened to find us today, don't you think that, oh, look at this country. Oh, let's take over. Nobody knows about this. I don't know. That's just. I think it was good. Like they came in early and then we built some kind of relationship with the Western world, and now we found a way to govern ourselves and still have economic support from different countries, Australia, New Zealand, America, and still have our own monarchy.
Yeah, I think that's good, but I mean, who's to say if you guys Tonga was left alone and then all of a sudden someone decides, which most likely would be China because closer.
Yeah.
I mean, would it be better off if the Chinese had taken over instead of the US or Britain or whoever? I'm not too familiar with Tongan history, but I feel like it would have been different, but would it be better? I mean, who's to say?
Well, I think if you look at the Chinese regime, I don't know if we want to be under them. The Chinese are very clever. I call them the silent dragon. So they basically move throughout the Pacific to a lot of undeveloped third world nations to offer financial assistance to build infrastructure such as ports and stuff like that. At the same time, knowing that these countries can't pay them back.
Yeah.
The U.S. was bailed out by China. The U.S. is indebted to China. So, let's see, they're very clever in how they're doing the movement, but at the same time, if you look at how China is run, we really are limited to what the media is telling us. At the same time, if it's a communistic country, are we ready to live under that type of regime versus, well, I don't know the way America is going. But it's clear that at some point China will call in their the shots at some point. You see them moving through Samoa. You see them moving through Papua New Guinea. I don't know how much influence they have in Tonga, but at the same time, in all the islands, everyone's trying to survive too. Everyone's in survival mode. So, I've seen the comments, the involvements of drugs and prostitution. Our country's gone into survival mode. Is there any hope? I don't know.
I had a question for you, Underground Roads, because I know you said that Tonga, in your opinion, Tonga was not colonized because of the you said we succeeded to God, right?
Yep.
But there are those who say that one of the tactics the West would use to colonize people is religion. They would use the influence of religion. That's their way of colonizing different countries, right? So, what do you think about that? Obviously they came with the religions that's prominent in Tonga are religions that were introduced by the West. So for a lot of people, they'd be like, yeah, see, if you have Christianity in your as a main religion in your country, then the West used that to colonize you. Like, what are your thoughts about those people? Like, what are your thoughts about that? The people who say that.
It depends what they define as God. in different parts of the world, people have different names for who God is. And so what we all know in different parts of the world, that God is someone greater. We all know that. It's just we all have a different name. But the fact that because it's a Western religion that's foreign to us, I think that's where a lot of people are conflicted, in a sense that we've taken on more of that because of Western theology.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
even
because obviously, yeah.
though we
Okay.
benefited off of it, and we've been able to have some form of freedom from it. Nobody wants to talk of their liberation because of it.
Because what was Tonga's I guess spiritual I don't know religion, but what was our beliefs back then? Was it just believing in nature and the moon and the sun? I don't know.
Maui, everyone talks about the story of Maui, all our stories and legends and that, it's similar to no different to the indigenous Australians. They had the dream time, their story of the creation. So I think everyone knew who God was, but in different cultures, we had a different way of telling the story of the creation, a different way of expressing who that higher being is. It's just that let's just say, we seem to think that just because, I think when Christianity came, I think a lot of it kind of resonated with a lot of us Polynesians. Does that make sense? So when they introduced Christianity, a lot of things in the scriptures resonated with a lot of Polynesians. I'll tell you why. When they talk about Enoch, and the people of Enoch and the city of Enoch, and they talked about how they were translated in a way. Enoch lived a perfect system, their structure and system, and how they took care of each other. And when I look at that, and if one man and his people could live in such a very structured society and systems in place that no one was left without anything. And I look at our Polynesian systems and how our village setting is set up, and how no one is left out, everyone is included. And so that really resonated with me, with that system, because I think we're one of the very few in the world that still has the elements of that system in place. Our village setting, the way the system is set up, how we govern each other, how we take care of our children. And I think if we would rather that our children be taken care of by our own than to be taken care of by the system. And so there's so much value in that we miss, that a lot of people overlook. That was a sustainable system, right? Compared to the Western world and the system that they have now in place. We have so many kids that are displaced, so many kids who are removed from homes. We also have no, in the village setting, when a child was struggling with something, struggling with your parent, you have your aunt, you had your uncle. Does that make sense? You have your grandparents. There's always someone to go to still support that child. But now that we're all overseas, we're all separated from each other, it's really hard to maintain those strong ties and units. you know, but I see when there's functions and funerals, it's wonderful to see how the cultural part comes into play where everybody comes together. And not a lot of cultures have that. And that's what I call by substance and depth that a lot of us have, and don't realize the value of that when you look further into why your ancestors did these things. I don't know if everybody know about the story about Ulukalala at that time. So, you know, he was smart. He strategically, before the foreigners landed the ships on the island, he would send the men out to the ships and basically slaughter all these explorers before they even attempted to land on shore.
Yeah.
Like, who does that? This man was so strategic in how they did. And who does that? Who navigates the ocean? I mean, you know, I think we use binary maths. The fact that we navigated, I think we've navigated a vast, not just the Pacific. Yeah, I think if you look back, I think we had so much knowledge that was discredited because it was not written, because it was oral, right? Yeah. And I think we lost a lot of those important things because a lot of valuable things that I think it would be nice for the younger generations to know, right? You know, and if you look at how we teach Tongan dance and stuff, how we teach maths by counting, rote, repetition, and all of that, I think it's a beautiful thing. Even the Samoan, you know, all of that. We're all interconnected, but again, there's so much things that we need to learn more about the intelligence behind our ancestors and why they did the things they did and how we can take those things and also hold on to it, but maintain it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing that, Underground Rose. As always, shout out to everybody in the live chat. Thank you so much. Keep that live chat popping. Let me know what you guys think. And of course, don't forget, if you do want to jump on as a public guest, the link is in the description of the video. And of course, if you got something to say for us to read and respond to, for everybody to see and hear, ask it through a super chat, and you can donate to the channel. I do want to shift the conversation. Obviously, we're talking about colonization, and we're talking about how it affects the islands. But I do want to talk about the colonizer mindset. It's a popular term. It's a buzzword I always hear on social media, especially TikTok. That it's this idea that if you adopt or act like the West, then you have a colonizer mindset, or maybe you're going against your own culture, or you're a sellout or something like that. You know, I often hear that on social media, where people talk about, if you want to dedicate yourself to be successful and you disregard all your cultural traditions, you have that your colonizer mindset. Or I've heard it on conversations where guys like, oh, if you prefer to date white men or white women, then that's over your own Polynesian sisters or brothers, then that's a colonizer mindset. So there's this it's an interesting conversation to have, because I do hear it on social media, mostly TikTok. I don't really see it on Instagram. I've heard it on Facebook, but there's this idea that if you adapt into Western society, and you adapt certain ideologies of the things that we learn here in the West, then you have a colonizer mindset. I want to just bring that up, and we can kind of discuss that real quick, because I've heard it from a lot of Pacific Islanders, especially the Islanders that grew up here in America, or maybe if you're Hafakasi, you have a white parent, and you have a Pacific Islander parent. a lot of times if you don't fit in with the Pacific Islanders, or you behave outside of the culture, they will just say, "Oh, you have a colonizer mindset." Because I've heard that buzzword a lot, and I've heard critics say that to me on a personal level. But I'll pass it back to you guys. What do you think about the that colonizer buzzword that people use all the time, especially for those who kind of Pacific Islanders who are adapting to the West and maybe going outside the culture? I'll start with you, Rose.
Honestly, that was never something I heard until social media really started to take off, especially TikTok, I guess. I don't do TikTok, but I hear it from other people. And it's something that I grew up with. So I feel like it's new, this colonizing propaganda, because it's propaganda. It's just basically pinning people against each other, right? Blacks against whites.
Rose, I think your video is lagging. Yeah.
Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now. It's better now.
It was lagging. Shoot. Okay, so I feel like the word colonizer is just propaganda to divide people, because when people are divided, then that creates chaos, and it's easy to control chaos and put people in a state of fear, and create everything that's going on right now in the world. So to me, that's just propaganda, that word, because when people are in that victim mentality, they're going to always want something owed to them, and they're not going to work for it. So with that mindset, you're always going to be helpless. You're putting yourself in that state. So yeah, I just feel like that's just all propaganda.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Rose. Yeah, it's just the video. Your audio is good, Rose. It's just the video. Your video quality is freezes.
Lagging. Yeah, I'm gonna try to call my phone. It's better.
I'll pass it to you, Underground Rose. Like, I don't know if you heard that buzzword or that term, the colonizer mindset.
Oh, is it a term they use for instead of saying someone's fie palangi?
Yeah, it's like a fear about.
Yeah. Why
Yeah,
don't they just say that instead of come up with that term? Be direct, right? Or is it what was it there? Are they insinuating that someone is diluted?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're-
Cool.
That they
They're
use,
so
you're
okay. Yeah, but that's the human condition, right? People don't know themselves, but they assume they know other people.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how you act or whatever you do, people will always have something negative to say. They will always have to put you in some kind of box to make sense for them.
Yeah.
And who cares? Really, if you know who you are, then you don't have to sweat it. That's just my mentality. People can think what they think, but do they really know you? They don't even know 0.01% of you. So that's I think just people should just stop using all these terms and just get straight to the point.
Yeah, and there's also, I would say, there's a difference. Adapting things that clearly work in the West to improve your quality of life. That's not going against your culture.
Yeah, it's part of how you have to move and survive in where you're at, right? Unfortunately,
in the real world.
Unfortunately, that's the case, right? You have to, or else you'll be left behind.
Exactly. And I think there was a comment on the live chat that said that Tonga. I don't know if I forgot who said it in the live chat. It was like when we started the podcast, but they said that Tonga was being left behind, and as far as advancing like other countries, and I think that one of the things
that Tonga was being left behind.
I think one of the things about our people, especially I'm Tongan, that we for some reason we associate improvement in the West with fiapalangi or going against your culture. For me, it just makes rational sense. If you want to get a better job, or if you want to improve your physical health, then you're going to change your diet, then you're going to eat different foods and maybe not to be the traditional foods that our people usually eat. You're going to do things differently. That's just, for me, that just makes rational sense. But just because, like, if you decide to, read books, or you go to college, or I want to open up a business, I want to move a little bit differently, think a little bit differently, I want to improve my health. You know what? Most of my family members are eating the same food that's causing them to be obese. You know what? I'm gonna change my diet, be more nutritious, and be constantly be working out and live a very different lifestyle. That's not colonizer mindset. That's not fiapalangi. That's just self-improvement. That's self-growth, right? That's just thriving to personal responsibilities, so that way you can live a better quality of life, or your family can live a better quality of life. It's just it's and I think that's why our people are being left behind, honestly, because we have that mindset. Oh, why you going outside the culture, or why you hang around those people? You don't hang around with us, or why don't you spend more time with us, or do the same things that everybody else is doing? But clearly, there's a reason why most of our people are struggling with our health. We're struggling with education. We're struggling with our finances. If you look at the statistics, so obviously there's some islanders out there saying, you know what, I don't want to be in this situation. I want to find a better situation for myself, and they found ways that a lot of people here in the West they can thrive, and that's one of the best. That's one of the greatest things about being here in America. You can literally change your outcome and your future of your life, and there are ways to do it. But for some reason, our people are just, I don't know if it's stubborn, I don't know if it's ego,
No,
if it's just the crab in the bucket, crab in the barrel mentality. I don't know. What do you guys think?
it's the crab in the pot syndrome.
Yeah.
If you don't conform and you're an outsider, of course they're going to say something, because you're not the norm. Because you're the one that will probably break the mold, and you're probably the one that will break the family trauma.
But Rose, you want to say something?
You were hard to hear. There was like some kind of muffled sound echoing you, so I didn't really hear too much of the last part.
Oh no, you hear me now?
Yeah, it's clear now.
Okay. No, we were just discussing how, because there was a comment about on the live chat. They were saying our people are being left behind. Pacific Islanders in general. And I said that I think one of the reasons is we always associate adapting to Western culture as something that's anti Pacific Islander, or you're selling out to the West, or you're selling out yourself to the white man. If you choose to do things to adapt to live here and thrive in the Western society. So for me, it's not we're going against our culture or we're selling ourselves. Obviously, the great thing about the West is opportunities and information and knowledge that we can learn, that you can improve your quality of life. It just makes rational sense that if you learn that information, you find a way how to do it, then you would do it. But if you want to improve financially, physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever you want to learn here in the West, because the information is out there, and you can improve your quality of life. But for some reason, that if you do that and go against what is traditionally taught in our community, then for some reason they blame that as all your fiapalangi, or you have this colonizer mindset, or you're not one of us. And I think that's what's holding us a lot of us back from getting outside of our comfort zone to try new things, adopt new things of things that can improve our life, when the things that we're currently doing right now as a people, it's not working.
I think what's holding us back is just laziness, pure laziness. And people come up with excuses because they're just too lazy to work hard and get what you want. America is the one place where you can come with nothing and literally become whatever you want with hard work, discipline, and motivation. This is why everyone wants to come here. This is a great place to make money and become wealthy. So
Do you think it's laziness, or do you think it's more of mindset?
well, the mindset is laziness. So
Yeah.
it's a mindset of that, you know, victim mentality, poor me, or not, just really just environment. You know, if you have a lot of people that are negative and they don't believe in getting out of the rut, it's just everyone's pulling each other down. Misery loves company. So if you're around people who are successful and are pulling you up, supporting you, then it's just a different mindset. You're never going to think about why I can't. You're just going to figure out how I can.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think it's the victim mentality. I think it's a lot of the things. I think the majority of the things that you said is true. But what I truly think it is I think it's a lack of education or knowledge. I think as Pacific Islanders we live in a bubble. Like we live in such a bubble, and we don't know what we don't know, and the things we don't know, we're afraid to try and go outside. So obviously we saw that there's a way that our parents lived, and how they survived, and how they made a living here in America. And I think we have we just, for a lot of us, we just do the same things. And because our cultures, we live in such a rooted culture, and a very self-dependent culture where we have to depend on each other, especially financially. It doesn't allow people to go out there and kind of go out there on their own to kind of grow. But I think if we knew the information, I think it's going to take some people to go outside the culture and learn information and bring it back and teach it to our people. Because obviously we see other cultures thriving. We see the Chinese thriving. We see the white people thriving, black people thriving. And
the reason they're thriving is because they have the numbers. We don't have the numbers. Like I said, you grow and you thrive with population increase. That's how you do it. That's how you build. That's how you grow, is by numbers. You have to have the numbers. So you're looking at Chinese, which is over a billion population. India, over a billion population. So
what about the Philippines?
We're not even. We're barely over 1 million.
What about
what was that?
The Philippines? Yeah, the Filipinos.
Just where they're positioned, right? Because we're islands, we're off. We're kind of like forgotten. And the Philippines is in a location where it has a lot of resources, and because it's close to, you know, China and all the other bigger countries, it's really just location when it comes down to.
I have to say, what you forget, Will, is Tonga has the highest percentage per capita of PhDs. I'm going to tell you that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Polynesians that are highly educated in New Zealand, Polynesians highly educated in England and in Australia. So it's not just America. You know, we just need to actually know what resources are available to us, how to use it, take advantage of that, right? Because there's so many business savvy Polynesians around. It's just we don't know who they are. It's about networking with them, getting to learn about their mindset, how they survived in the Western culture and adapted and adjusted and stuff. There's a lot. We just don't put them out on the stage to see them. You only hear the popular ones like The Rock and the wrestlers and stuff, but there's a lot of brilliant, intelligent Polynesians out there. It's just we need to put them out in the forefront to hear from them. There's so many of this. There's scientists, there's mathematicians, there's, you know, do you see them? No, we only see, who do we see on our TV? Who do we see on our podcast? We don't put them out there. Those are the people that we should put out there for our younger generation to look to as mentors.
Yeah. I mean, but even the I know there are Pacific Islanders people who are doing it, who are succeeding, business scientists in different professions, but because we're such a small population, I think there's only a few of us that's actually trying it, right? Like, but whenever we have the conversation about like the Asians, right? They're very big on education and going to college and being successful, right? But for us, for some reason when it comes to trying new things, for some reason, and this is there's no statistics out there, but for me is when you have a conversation with Pacific Islanders about trying something different, it's really, really hard to get them to get out that mindset. I don't think it's about laziness. I think if we have the capacity to do it, I think obviously we work hard in the jobs that we do, like the yate and the airport. There's a lot of Tongans out there working really, really hard, but I think it's to shift our mindset to thrive here in America. And I think in order to do that, I think the problem is of our Tongans is like we have to kind of be more selfish on ourselves to move up in life, to elevate ourselves. And I think it's because of our traditional and our roots and our things that we practice traditionally with our culture, like which everybody is dependent on one another. I think that can be really, really, really hard.
Yeah, yes, I agree. Because of our collectivistic culture,
Yeah.
We are selfless people. So I think we are torn between the individualistic culture to be able to survive in the Western world and our collectivistic culture. So the battle is obligation to our cultural demands at the same time, right? Versus while trying to survive in an individualistic capitalistic culture. So that's the challenge. There's this inner conflict at some time, at some point, sometimes without, I guess, when I say fear palangi, sometimes if you go over one line or too much of that line, it's almost like, you're struggling. Your battle is struggling with your own self, right? But I like what Rose had shared earlier about adjusting and adapting, and she said something I forgot, but I thought it was added so much value about being here. But I do think sometimes we become complacent. The fact that we have so much abundance around us that we get so comfortable too with what we have and not taking advantage of what's around and available to us.
Yeah, I agree. Complacency, laziness. I think what's holding us back is we just don't know, because we don't really have a lot of examples. Like I do understand there are successful Tongans and Pacific Islanders out there, scientists, entrepreneurs, but we don't know none of them, right? So I think in our cultures, we really don't know what we don't know. The reason why Asians and other blacks and Hispanics, the reason why it's more easier. No, I wouldn't say easier, but they're able to have confidence in themselves to be successful. There's countless examples of very successful people within their culture, and they're well known in their community and in the world. But for us, we don't really have anybody that's well known for us to look up to. Oh, it's possible. Oh, okay. Besides the NFL, besides sports, that's the only thing that we have 100% assurance in ourselves if you are able to make it into the professional sports. But whenever we think about highly successful people, the very first things that comes to our mind is like sports, right? But I think because what we need what we really need is our people. Whoever's being successful, we just need to bring that information back, introduce it, and so people really know that it is possible. I was having a conversation with this one guy. He hit me up, and he wanted to join my podcast. He's like, "Hey, man, like I've been watching your podcast, and I want to can I come and join your whatever you're doing because I think it's interesting." I never thought that podcasting is something that that we can do, and right now I'm trying to figure out what I want to do for my life, and I just happened to come by your content and I like it, and we connected, and he's going to join me in a couple of weeks. But I think for us, it's like we really don't know what's really out there, especially in the West, because all we know is what we know, which is yate, caretaking, airport. Those are the 100%. Those are the only professions or things that we really know and we trust. That's gonna give us some kind of future, and we don't realize there are other things that you can do. But I think we just need more people to be successful and come back and bring that information back. And unfortunately, the people that I know who are very successful in themselves in their life, once they become successful, they just live their life. They don't really come back and introduce that back into the community or try to, hey, this is how I did. This is the process. This is the process. This is the blueprint. You don't really see that a lot within our people who are very highly successful, which I don't blame, because once they're successful, they have their own life. They have their own family. They're more worried about their family. So I don't have a problem with that. But if I believe that if more of the people that are successful as Islanders or Samoans, especially those who go against the stereotypes, they need to come back, either do it through podcasting, where they introduce the knowledge, what they learn in their life story, and make content about it so people can see, because social media is now the medium where everybody goes to get information. But I think if more of us came back and just introduced that information, hey, it is possible. This is how I did it. This is the blueprint. Then I think a lot of kids were like, oh, okay. I didn't know that was even a choice, or that was even the avenue, that was even a possibility. And once they see you do it, I think they'll have more confidence that they can do it themselves, because they've seen somebody that looks just like them become successful, and it's possible for them. So I think it's just a mind shift. I think there's a limited belief that our people, we kind of live in a bubble too much, because our culture is very collectivistic, like Underground Roads, that we stick to each other, and it's more about helping the other person over your own personal needs, which is a good thing. Like I'm not saying it's bad. There's pros and cons to it, but I think in order to really be successful, I think you have to at some point kind of focus on yourself first over everybody else.
I have to say, the collectivistic culture we have some advantage in a sense. The Chinese are pretty much like that. They hold on to their culture, but they're very collectivistic in that sense. So I'll tell you their system. I know that, being my ancestors being Chinese, my great-great-great-grandfather and his brother migrated from China when they were 16 to the Pacific. And this is how they function. They take care of each other. They all live in the same house. They all pay off. Everyone contributes to paying off that one house. If someone needs the car, everybody contributes to paying out for that car in cash. Once they've all paid for that car and that house, then they go and purchase another house. So you'll have multiple generations in that house, but all multiple generations, they have their own economic system in that household, so that the future generation will benefit. At the same time, they also know that they will have the ability to take care of their parents and their grandparents. So in a lot of Chinese households, I don't know if you've seen it here in Australia, you see it there too. You'll have probably 3 generations in one home: grandparents, sons, daughter, their wives, and children. And so, and they're very smart. They also invest in setting up restaurants. So there you go. You're fed the whole year. There goes your food bill, right? And so they all work in that restaurant. And once they've done successful, like the nail salons with the Vietnamese, I know of my daughter's friend whose mother established a business. And then her daughter they opened up another store. Her daughter took over that. So I think it's we're looking at our family unit collectivistically. How do we create an economic system within our own family unit, so we're not, so that we all can benefit. How the Chinese they still hold on to those things, but they all benefited at some point, right? I think it's just everybody coming together and saying, okay, this is what we want to leave behind for our legacy, and this is how we're going to go about doing that. I'm not sure if that will work with us as Polynesians in our own family units, but we also need to fortify family units. I think the encroaching of Western society too tends to break down some of our nuclear families. Does that make sense? I don't know. I don't know if I'm talking sense, but I hope that makes sense.
Oh, yes.
I learned that from my Chinese side,
No,
how they went about doing things.
no, that makes absolute sense because I've heard that from my Asian friends as well with their families, and I interviewed an Asian guy a long time ago on my podcast, and they explained the same thing. What I'm saying is, it's gonna take somebody from our culture. See, the Asians, what they figured out a blueprint where they can still keep their culture and be highly successful and adapt here in the West to thrive, right? So they figure out an economic system within themselves that it makes it work for them. What I'm saying is, it's gonna take somebody within our culture to learn that information of how to do that type of entrepreneurship mindset and managing finances, to come back and teach that to our to his family, and that becomes part of it becomes part of our culture. This is how we do things as Tongans. We come together, we collect our money and combine our incomes, and we buy a house, right? We buy a car, and then that's what I'm saying is, if always it takes somebody to come in and introduce that information and teach that to our people, and then that becomes part of our that could become part of our culture, just like the Asians and the Filipinos. I think that's what's gonna push us forward to catch up to everybody else, because everybody else has figured out a blueprint in order to keep their culture and still be highly successful and thrive economically. We haven't figured that out because I think we are closed-minded right now to that type of mentality, but it's gonna take somebody of our own people to come and introduce that back. Usually our people who are very successful economically, once they're successful, they just live their life and they don't come back and teach it or start it with our community. So if somebody can teach that system to our people, hey, this is going to be the norm for us. This is going to be how our family does it. Or maybe a couple families come together in the neighborhood. Hey, because I've heard from Asians, they do that as a community, as neighbors. Everybody does it together. So if we do that together as a community, then that becomes the normal way of how Tongans thrive in America, is collecting our money and income to buy our house, to buy our cars, and so that way we can own our houses and our cars, and also start up our own businesses where we don't have to rely on the bank. We can just fund ourselves. I'll pass it to you, Rose. What do you think?
Well, like here in Vegas, like you were saying, Rose, the Chinese, they have like their own community, their own systems in place. They have their own banking. They buy houses, only rent to each other. They buy from each other. They open up restaurants and support each other. They have their own capital. They have the numbers to create the systems that take place here in Vegas. I mean, California, definitely, they've already done it there. And here they're just growing exponentially. We have Chinatown, which is just growing with a lot of the Chinese that's owning a lot of the businesses. And it's great. It's great for our economy. But they have those systems in place because they have the numbers. Like I said, Polynesians, there's only around 2 million Polynesians. And you brought up the Philippines. Well, Philippines has almost 114 million population, and their island's a lot bigger. If you look at a map, you'll see it on the map, but you don't see South on the map. It's a speck.
They have 114 million Filipinos in America?
No, in the Philippines. I don't know how many in America or worldwide.
I didn't know that.
Obviously, most of them in the Philippines.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so that's why I'm like, you can't compare, because
our population is so small and it's still so new. Everything is it's like there's no comparison. We're still 0% of the population. So it's like, how do we compete with populations that are 100 million and higher? We need time. We really need time to be able to catch up to that. So because we don't have time, we have time. Time is against us, and we do have a support system because we're very communal. We're very communal people. Except our resources are not monetary, right? Our resources is everything but monetary resources. So that's where we need to grow. And when we do grow, there's always going to be the haters. Oh, look at that one. They're da 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 da. And then you want to go back and help people. But it's like, why? When everyone's shit talking on me for being the one that's actually making it, it's like, gosh, you see it over and over and over. Me growing up being Afghasi, it's like I was always hated on because I was the smart one, because I was this and this and that, and I wanted to succeed in life. And everyone that wasn't able to catch up were hating on me, which were my own people. It wasn't my Asian friends or my Falangi friends. It was my Polynesian friends and community, people at church, always talking shit. And so it just gives me a bad taste to want to even go out and help my own community. But I'm still going to help my own community because that's just who I am. But I look at it, I'm like, man, I'll give you a prime example. I was my mom's, she had a friend in church whose son needed a medical bed, and I had a medical bed for my dad. It's like a $2,000 bed, and he didn't need it. So I was like, okay, I'll sell it to her for like $500. That's like a really good deal, and I'll deliver it. And that shit's heavy, and I have my big truck, so we went and delivered it, and she fucked us over and didn't pay. And I'm like, man, if she really needed it that bad, she could have just asked. I would have given to her as charity because her son's handicapped. But the way she did us, that's just wrong, and it just puts a sour taste in my mouth to not even want to help people in the Samoan community. I can come up with just dozens of examples of stuff like that, where you go out, you try to help, and they take advantage of you. And it's like, man, it leads me more to like want to stay closer to my other side, to my Falangi side. So that's just an example. And then like, you brought up like complacency. That's what I mean by laziness, is complacency. When you're in the islands, you're just, you do enough, but you don't go overboard because you don't need to. And that's what I'm talking about, is that mindset, that island mindset, because it's such a slow lifestyle. Even in New Zealand, when I went there to visit my sisters who live in Auckland, it's such a, the place that they live in, where all the Polynesians live in, it's like the poor area. And when I went there, I was like, yeah, I stayed in the poor area for a bit. And then I kind of ventured out and I wanted to go stay downtown. And that's where it's like very multicultural. It's such a big difference, like night and day. It's almost like a whole nother country. And it's insane because everyone in the poor area, none of the businesses are owned by any Polynesians. They're all the worker bees. All the Chinese and Indians own everything in Auckland. And it's just like, well, why can't the Polynesians rise up and educate themselves and support each other? Because they have bigger numbers in Auckland than any other place. But they don't, because they're stuck in that mentality of I can't, and the jealousy, or if you're gonna make it up, then I'm gonna pull you down because I'm not up there. It's just like that crab. Everyone's a crab. As soon as someone wants to get up, pull them down. And that's just it's almost like a disease that has caused our Polynesian people to still be stuck in this rut. And I feel like unless you're honestly interbreeding with other races that can kind of pull you away from that, you're not really going to find success, because the people that I see that are super successful that are Polynesian are ones that usually go out of their circle and go mingle and mix with other cultures. And that's just what I've seen from experience.
Yeah. No, I totally understand, because I've experienced the same thing for myself. But I do believe that I know it's not going to be hard. I know it's for a fact that it's going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy. But I think in order for us to overcome it, I think it's going to take somebody to go back and teach it. And maybe not even help out the community, but if you can just focus on a couple families. You know what? I know my family, and then 3 other families, I know I can help them. And then I think that's how it's going to start. Obviously, you're not going to change the whole community overnight, but I think it is I think is we don't know what we don't know, and if we don't know what we don't know of what's possible, then it's easy. We're just gonna settle for the realities of what we live in our everyday life. I think most of us, a lot of Tongans, because we don't go outside our culture, because we don't hang around other people, the norm of what our parents do, the jobs that we commonly work, what majority of Pacific Islanders work, they just do what everybody else does because they don't really know there's another possibility besides the stereotypes, which is going to the NFL, playing rugby, or being an athlete. Like there's this very limited mentality for us of what's possible, and there's a few of us that are willing to go outside. But if we want to affect the majority of the rest of us, I think it's going to take somebody to really go back and be like, hey, it is possible, and teach the information directly to them. This is how you start a business. This is how, like, the steps, because I think if somebody does that, I think once people really understand how to do it, like for me, like once I understood how to do a podcast, like how to do an LLC, how to fire, like all that stuff that we do for businesses. Once you figure it out, it's pretty easy. Like people think that making money is hard. Not once you figure out how to make money, it's really easy. It's just the amount of work that you're willing to do. But I think a lot of us just don't know what's out there because we just do what everybody else is doing, and that's just how our community is. We're very big on just making sure that we help each other out. But I think if somebody's, I don't know if it's going to be you, Rose, or there's going to be somebody that needs to really go back and teach the step-by-step process. And once people really understand how to do it, and they see examples of success stories, then I think we start to see some change. Because the Chinese, they figured out a blueprint, an economic blueprint that works for them. Every culture that's thrived. They figured out a way. For us, I think for our people, we need to figure out an economic blueprint, and we haven't figured that out yet. That's gonna work for our culture. So obviously, there's always gonna be haters out there. There's always gonna be people think that that won't believe, but I think once we give them the information and teach it step by step, especially the younger kids, because the younger kids are gonna be more open-minded than the older generation. The older generation are going to be stuck in their ways, but I think the younger kids is what's going to make a difference. But yeah, nevertheless, I appreciate you guys, everybody in the live chat. Thank you so much being here in the live chat and being part of the podcast. But I think we've come to the end of the live stream. Appreciate you guys, Rose, Underground Rose, jumping on the conversation. I know we first started talking about colonization and in the Pacific Islands, and if Tonga was a colonized nation, and we kind of shifted into the colonizer mindset and to thriving here in the West. But I see a lot of new names here in the live chat. Thank you so much. I see you, Vika. Good to see you, Vika, on the live chat. I saw you from Facebook, so thank you for coming over to from to YouTube and be part of the conversation. I love my space that way. I think that's the first time I've seen you here on the live chat. Thank you so much for being part of the podcast. And Tongan Mummy, I'm gonna call Tongan Mummy out. Hey, Tongan Mummy, we're still missing you. We're still missing you on the panel. On the panel for tonight. But thank you so much, everybody that's been part of the pod. I've been part of the live chat. Don't forget, there's a public podcast we always host on Wednesdays. So don't forget to come on here and like and subscribe so you get notification we do go live. Talking Mami Katape, Talking Mami Katape, the Holame podcast. But yeah, thank you so much for everybody that's watching this right now. But I'll pass it back to the panel. And what's your final thoughts for tonight's discussion? Thank you so much, Rose, for being part of the pod. And of course, Underground Roads, thank you for jumping on as a public guest. And I'll start with you, Rose. Rose, what's your final thoughts from tonight's discussion? And how can people find you?
My final thoughts is, if you're a Polynesian that's born in America, you have no excuse for being Basically, you have no excuse to not be successful because you have all the tools and keys in your hands that have been given to you by your parents and your ancestors. I mean, if our parents can come here from the islands and make it and raise us with nothing, then how is it that we can't make something of ourselves when we have all the tools? It's like, I don't understand this about our community. Is I feel like there's just too many excuses, and we need to stop making excuses and start living up to our potential, because we have so much potential. We're so smart, and we're so intuitive, and we have it in us to become extremely successful. And if we're not, then I would encourage you to start networking with people who are successful and following what they're doing, changing your friends, changing your environment, changing your surrounding. You are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. So if you're constantly around your family members who are dragging you down, then leave, go somewhere else, change your friends if they're constantly pulling you down or they're not doing anything with their lives. You know, there's so much potential that we have as a people, and we have so many opportunities here in America. So there's really no excuse to not be successful, especially as an American-born Polynesian. So yeah, if you guys want to find me, I'm on Instagram, Hungry Samoans. So thank you, Will, for having me on, and thank you everyone in the chat for being active.
Yeah, I think there was somebody in the chat that was trying to holler at you. I don't know who I forgot who it was, Rose, but
Well, I'm a married woman, so
yeah, you guys remember there's a
I wanna
simp
connect.
free zone, guys. No simping here on the live chat. All right. But Rose, as always, thank you so much for being part of the pod, and you just spoke some real facts. All right. Pass it back. I pass it to you, Underground Rose. Thank you so much for jumping on as a public guest, as always. And you have any final thoughts, Underground Rose, that you want to share? And I know you wanted to share a link, a source. You can post it on the live chat.
I
Underground
have to
Rose.
say, Rose, I totally agree with you. Finding like-minded people, that's a must. But I want to share some resources. So your phone you can do anything with your phone. That's technology. You can do anything with your phone. For those who are interested in publishing their own books, if you're illustrators, if you are authors, if you're poets, if you want to write your biography, there's resources. You can go to Amazon and sign up with Kindle Publishing, and you can publish your own books for free. You can upload your story, your pictures, whatever you want, and publish your own book. You can purchase the books from Amazon and sell it yourself, which you make more money that way, or they can distribute it and sell it for you. So that's just a plug-in for those who are wanting to know about what resources are there for those who are illustrators or who want to write books, or authors or poets. Also those who are musicians, if you have programs such as Pro Tools or Logic and stuff. I know there's a lot of Polynesians out there who are producing music and writing lyrics. You can start up by having those programs on your computer and create your own tracks and your own music, write your own lyrics, put your poetry to whatever it is. You can publish your songs through BMI Music, AceCap. I think there's some other companies in Australia, but I'm just putting a shout out there. There's resources out there. I just wanted to share that. You can do it yourself. Does that make sense? It's just a matter of finding what is available to you. And then you get the business side from Rose and Will, setting up your own LLC. That's it. That's all I want to share.
Thank you for sharing that, Underground Rose. And also, just to add on what you just said, what you just said, and to what Rose said, the reason why there's literally no excuse for anybody, especially Pacific Islanders, to be successful and to attain any kind of knowledge of how to do something that you probably don't know how to do, it's because of this. There's literally no reason why you can't find out the information that you need in order to do the things that you want to achieve. Everything's on here. Everything is on the phone. So you don't need to go to college. You don't need to go to the library. Everything's on your phone. It's convenient. It's takes 1 second to click on Google and to type in how to do ... Or go to YouTube videos, how to do, and then there's a video out there that's going to show you step by step and the blueprint of how to accomplish whatever you want. Just literally, it's that's why I believe like this is the best time. If there was a time in the world in order to, which was the easiest to succeed, it would be today, 2023, especially in the West, in living here in America. It's so easy right now. It's just a matter of how much commitment do you have and drive, hunger, and how much you're willing to work and delayed gratification in order to achieve the things that you want for your life. That's all it is. But as always, I appreciate you guys, everybody in the live chat. Thank you so much for being part of the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to tap in for tomorrow's Masculine Mind podcast, where I'm going to refocus on male masculinity, self-improvement, and purpose. That's all for the fellas out there and the ladies. This Friday, I have a very special interview. I won't say who it is, but this Friday, I do have a special interview. It's going to be a Tongan adult OnlyFans content creator. She's going to come on here to the studio, and she wants to share her story of why she decided to go into adult OnlyFans content as a Pacific Islander. So that's gonna be very interesting to hear her story. So that's gonna be a good interview that I'm gonna have this Friday. I know when it comes to adult content, that's very taboo in our community. It's looked down upon, but obviously OnlyFans and adult content, that's it's the norm here in society. So I'm gonna be interviewing her. I won't say her name. I think all the guys in here probably knows who she is, but I'm going to interview her story and, as a Tongan, of why she decided to go into the adult industry, especially when it comes to OnlyFans content creation. And she agreed for me because she watches my podcast. It's like she wants me to ask her the hard questions. So I'm going to ask her the hard questions. So it's going to be a very great interview this Friday. And on Saturday, of course, don't forget to tap in on Saturday for my After Dark podcast, where we talk about dating and relationships. I have a great show planned on Saturday for all the single people out there. I know there's a lot of single people here on the live chat, and you guys need some love. So I have 8 ladies. I got 8 beautiful ladies coming in Saturday. It's gonna be a packed studio. I don't know how I'm gonna fit all of them here, but I'm gonna figure it out. But we're gonna have a good conversation here on Saturday. So as always, I have different shows: Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Whatever fits you, whatever you guys find value, what's the best content suited for you, for whatever you're going through your life. I try to provide you guys all different types of content. But nevertheless, I appreciate you guys. I have some projects I'm working behind the scenes. I'll introduce it to you guys a little bit later. I got some things working behind the scenes to some special guests coming here. So as you guys know, as always, I'm trying to give you guys the best quality content, the best content for you guys. The best way you can reciprocate that if you find value in the content is like and subscribe. If you want to donate to the channel, ask it through a super chat, or you can donate to my Cash App, which is on the description of the video. I'm always making sure to give you guys the best quality content. Of course, that is why I am the #1 Polynesian podcaster in the world. All right. #1. I don't settle for nothing less. All right. But nevertheless, appreciate you guys, and I'll see you guys next time. And talking to mommy, when I reach out next time, you better be on the pod. Next time, I'm coming for you, Tonga mommy. Oahola me out, eh? Nevertheless, peace, y'all. Ofatu. As always, all the Kava drinkers out there. Ofatu. Peace.